Welcome back to Mountain Connections. Right now, all schooling is happening at home. There's been many changes due to the coronavirus, and students are learning virtually. And here to give us some tips and advice and let us know how their school has transitioned to the online space is Jij de Jesus. He is the principal of the lower school at Rowland Hall. Jay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
So I'm curious about Rowland Hall. If someone isn't familiar with the school, tell me a little bit about the philosophy and the mission and really why you decided to be a part of this school.
Yeah, so Rowland Hall is an independent coeducational day school here in Salt Lake City, and we offer a college preparatory program to students through pre-K through grade 12. And the vision for the school is really to inspire students who make a difference. And especially at this time, we feel like that's a compelling mission to deliver to students and families in our community. And incidentally, 155 of our students actually live in Park City, which is about 17% of our student body.
And overnight, like everyone, you had to adjust and shift and change things due to COVID-19. Tell me more about the school's current situation and how you made that shift.
Yeah, so we are delivering distance learning to our students and families from the beginning school, our youngest learners, all the way up through high school. And we made that shift, I think, with the attitude that we knew the experience we wanted our students to feel when they're on campus and with us in the buildings and in the classrooms. And we felt like we could replicate that to the best of our ability using available technology. And our fantastic, caring, dedicated faculty and staff were able to do that and pivot in such a speedy way that it was almost seamless in the transition, given the uncertainty of the circumstances.
In fact, Rowland Hall, you have found, Jay, that with your student population, there's actually been some great benefits to distance learning. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that there are actually benefits when it comes to distance learning. And I want to be clear that I'm talking about benefits of something that is clearly not ideal or best. Especially, I work with first through fifth graders. Distance learning is definitely not as good as learning in person. But given that we know it's not the best situation, I think we've shifted our focus to, how do we actually do our best to do what's best for kids in this moment? And I think we were able to dig into that question because we shifted from a mindset of seeing obstacles to looking for opportunities. And there are actually opportunities, right? And I know this both as an educator and as a parent. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old at home, so I get it in a very deep and profound way that none of this is easy. And again, there are still opportunities if we look for them. And one of the most important ones, the one that I've seen the most, is this increased sense of independence and self-awareness for our students as learners, which has been amazing. And obviously kids have had to do more of the learning on their own as they've shifted to home learning. And what I've been seeing is that they're actually able to do that. And in doing that, they're developing skills like perseverance, motivation, executive functioning, stick-to-itiveness, and all of that is resulting in increased pride and confidence in their learning, which are results that we love to see in our kids.
It's good to hear that there are some benefits coming out of this difficult, unique situation, we hope. I'm curious, what are some challenges with educating this younger age online?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest challenges are just making sure that they are engaged in the learning, because when they're in the classroom, you can see them and you can look at their body language and recognize when they may be drifting away. So that takes a lot of intentionality in how our teachers are designing the learning experiences and using things like synchronous, which is live instruction via technology, or asynchronous, which is designing activities that kids can do offline, off screen. And again, using those two modalities to really deliver an engaging and extraordinary learning experience, I think has been a challenge. I think another big challenge is just making sure that young learners really benefit from the social connections that happen at school. And so trying to approximate that through technology, again, takes a lot of intentionality from our teachers. And we've also been working a lot with our families and parents and caregivers to make sure that they have the tools and resources and understandings to best support their kids at home.
And after navigating this virtual schooling and education for many weeks, you actually have some tips for families that you're willing to share with our viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that's one thing that our school, we recognize that, teaching is hard, parenting is hard, and parenting is hard, and both are just a little bit easier when they're done in partnership. And especially now in this moment when learning at home can present challenges for young children, that partnership is critical to the success of kids. So I think tip number one is really to prioritize in this moment, all right? And there's so much going on that if we're able to really hone in on the most important things, then our kids can actually succeed and thrive. So when it comes to academics, prioritizing things like reading, writing, and math are really important. And if all else fails, I always recommend, just focus on reading, right? Reading aloud, having your kids read, reading together. That can just be an engaging moment to make sure that their academics are continuing to proceed. I think ultimately the prioritization really focuses on the emotional well-being of the child in this moment. And that also extends to the emotional well-being of the family as a unit. And a big tip that I'm giving to families is actually, and to parents and caregivers, is making sure that you're prioritizing your own well-being. And I often think of, remember that time when we used to fly in airplanes and they give a safety talk about, put on your face mask first before you help others. That's something we always recommend for families and parents, is to make sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can best care for your child.
And Jay, I can tell that your passion for education is very high. It comes through the screen. And quickly, before we let you go, I'm curious, what made you decide to go into education?
What made me decide to go into education? I think I've always had this love of learning, and I've always really enjoyed the process of learning. So, for myself, being able to then help young people and children experience that process of learning, and then now as a principal, helping to steward kids and families navigate this process of learning that's so critical to, feeling success and happiness later in life. I think that is really what draws me to being an educator.
And Jay, where can we find more information about Rowland Hall, how you handle admissions, also these tips for educating students and more?
Yeah, so our website is rowlandhall.org. And actually, I talked a little bit about the partnership between school and home, and we have lots of tips and resources available for parents at rowlandhall.org/parent education. And I'd encourage parents to go there to seek more information about how they can best support their kids at home, whether they're Rowland Hall families or not.
What an excellent resource. Jij de Jesus, thank you so much for joining us from Rowland Hall today. Really some nice advice from an educator who's in the trenches right now on how we can best help our children during this time. So head to Rowland Hall online and get more tips for parents there. We'll be right back right after this.